Hi, I'm Jack Grimmer at Wycombe Wanderers, and you're listening to Wycombe Sound.
The Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. Plenty of Chairboys content for you in the next hour in what I believe is our penultimate show of the season. Getting towards the business end now, and the table obviously looking much better as well after that fantastic victory at Port Vale on Tuesday night. Goals in either end of the game. Fantastic to see Nigel Lonvite back on the score sheet, and also of course David Wheeler very early in the game as well. We'll catch up with Phil in a few moments time to review that and look ahead to the trip to Carlisle and find out how he's making the trip, and the rest of the team as well, because it's a long way, isn't it? And you'd imagine he'd be calling at many service stations en route as well. We'll hear from manager Matt Bloomfield on a couple of occasions in this hour, looking ahead to that trip to Carlisle, as I say, and reviewing the performance at Port Vale. And thanks to Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, we're very privileged to get to speak to their second oldest surviving member, Dick Tunmer, who is living in Bourne End and is celebrating today his 95th birthday, surrounded by his family. Shirley, his wife of 67 years, and his daughters and his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. A real pleasure to share his thoughts and memories as well. We'll switch our attention to Wycombe Wanderers Women and hear from Emani, who's a fantastic winger who only signed for the club last month, has made her debut, already scored as well, and we'll look ahead to next season, as well as what the team hopes to achieve for the remainder of this campaign as well. We'll bring you some news from Wycombe Wanderers Foundation and preview what's to come in the coming weeks of this programme as well. But first, we spoke to Phil shortly after, the morning after, I suppose you might say, the night before. He and Matt Sessel from the club stayed up in the Potteries after the Port Vale trip to attend the EFL conference, which was taking place for club media content, and he spoke to us from there about what was, of course, his 500th, a fantastic milestone, commentary of Wycombe Wanderers and how that went.
Well, it was a win, which was good, and a decent game. So from that respect, very good indeed. 500, to use the Adebayo in French number, it's just a number, isn't it? But yes, on reflection, quite a lot of talking, probably quite a lot of talking rubbish for quite a long period of time. So, yeah, and I'd like to point out as well that Wycombe at some points in their time in this last sort of 10 years have played slightly longer than 90 minutes on the average game. So actually it's even longer when you think of it in that respect. But great to notch up the numbers, and lovely to hear from the fans. And, yeah, more importantly, to call a win last night. No one's on the beach at Wycombe Wanderers, I think it's safe to say, having seen the performances of late and the results too. So, yeah, good from every aspect. Very enjoyable.
Obviously, you should only take one game at a time, so obviously we'll focus on that one. But for a moment, we'll move on to Carlisle in a moment. But as we'll hear from the manager shortly, it was great that the performances recently have been fantastic, and the form table doesn't lie.
Yeah, and I think we've got to give a lot of credit really to the gaffer, because, like I said, as soon as we became safe, is there a little subconscious switch in the back of someone's mind that thinks, where it'd be good to go on holiday this year, or I might not quite exert myself quite so hard because I don't want to get injured. I want to make sure I get a good sort of off period and come back to raring for pre-season. This is pre-season. I get that impression. I really do. And players looking to impress. There's certain players out of contract as well, and other people too. So yeah, I think it's a really good sort of environment, and there's no sort of letting off. And I think there's a big sort of drive to finish as high up the table as possible, which sounds like a really trite or cliche thing to say, but psychologically I think it's hugely important. Last night we moved into the top half of the table, and that's important. In the days of CFAX, that's another 30 seconds of your life you've just got back by not having to wait for the page to rotate. So it's important things psychologically. I think for the fans' perspective, obviously the worry is there when you're looking over your shoulder at the bottom four. That's been removed. So the fans perhaps are able to enjoy it a little bit more. I don't think many people were enjoying the football at Shrewsbury in the first half in any sense, really. It's a game, tough conditions. But they enjoyed the result and the substitutions in the second half. And last night, it was a game where an opposition were absolutely desperate to win, because they were right in it down at the bottom, and even further in it now as a result of losing to us last night. So there was an element of enjoyment, a little bit of voyeurism perhaps, but we all want to see progress being made, and we are seeing it, which is really pleasing to see. And it was great to speak to the gaffer after the game, who was buzzing.
Yeah, absolutely delighted. I think that, obviously with the schedule that we've had, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, we've picked up a few knocks, we've picked up a few niggles, and we're having to keep rotating and trying to keep us as fresh as we can. I think it's hard for the boys because we keep churning out a different team without any prep time really in terms of proper team play. So it's testing the group, but I thought, there's some really good bits coming out of the performance tonight. Far from perfect, but I actually thought there's some really good elements, character, and a real win and desire to get another 3 points on the board was in abundance. So really, really pleased. And it's a time of season where the league table really comes into it. Port Vale scrapping for their lives, and we saw that today, didn't we? Yeah, of course. I thought they were very good in the way they set up. We know Darren's team's playing a 3-5-2 are really good. They went to a diamond halfway through the first half when they had an injury and changed, and so obviously it affected our prep because we had to adapt in game, and I thought it rocked us for a little while. Obviously playing into Loft and playing into Ooch, I felt that they had a real big threat. So obviously the changes made a good difference for us today. I thought that first half we were very, very good. We could have been 3-0 up in 10-15 minutes maybe. I'm not sure what the clock said. I think we could have been 3-0 up and out of sight early on. Shame we weren't really, because then at 1-0 it's always going to be a tough game, especially with a team that's fighting for their lives, and a full respect for the way that they played. So it's always going to be a tough night from that point, but to show their character, to go 1-1 and then to find a winner, absolutely delighted, mate, really. Great game to watch, very physical as well. He must have been delighted with the physical side of Wycombe's game today, as well as what they did with the ball. Yeah, we knew the physical aspect was coming, so we picked a team that we felt could deal with that, and I felt we did. Within this league there's loads of different styles of games, and you have to try and pick. We saw at Wembley last week, we picked a team that we felt needed to play that game for Peterborough, and tonight it's a different challenge that you're coming up against. So it's a different element that we have to show in our performance, and we have to be able to mould ourselves. But obviously the form we're on, I think in the last 15 games before tonight we were 4th in the form table, so we'll be even better after tonight. So it's a third of the season now where we're showing real good form, and we want to build on that. I think there's been so much hard work and dedication that's gone into this season in terms of picking up the pieces from some tough games, and with some tough days we've really got ourselves in a solid footing with which to build, and we really hope to be able to build on what we can do now going into the last 3 games and then into the summer. And away from home, drawing 1-1 and a late winner, it was 2 teams trying to win the game, really. Wasn't thinking, right, we'll take a point from a tough place to go. That was very much a team looking for the 3 points. Yeah, and I think back to some of the games earlier in the season. I genuinely think that Portsmouth away, when the late goal goes in, it's a foul. Or Barnsley away, when we could have nicked the winner, another foul that goes in against us. It's not been all doom and gloom. There's been some real tough days, mate, and some real long journeys home, and it'd be remiss of me not to understand that and remind myself of the lessons we've learned. But we're a long way to go, but we've made some good steps forward, and I think the energy we have about us at the moment is really, really nice to see. It's a real squad effort at the moment, and I'm having to rotate and try and keep the energy on the pitch, and the boys are doing that. I want to take that into Carlisle at the weekend. And your left back pops up at the right wing in the 84th minute with the winner. Yeah, I don't remember practicing that one, so I'm going to have to look back and see what we were doing at that point. But yeah, it's I think a lot of Nige. He's come in, and as with a lot of the loanees we've had this year, Potsy and Dalo. I apologise who I've left out in terms of Gideon, Chemi, the way they've really bought into who we are and what we are and what we're trying to do. I was speaking to Lukey about it at lunch, and he was saying you'd never guess that these boys are loanees, not permanent Wycombe Wanderers players, because of the way they've conducted themselves. So yeah, listen, I think you'd think Nigel's been here for a couple of years, the way he's in amongst the group, and he's done great, hasn't he? So played him left back again tonight because I wanted to see Lukey in midfield alongside Butch. Potsy obviously got a knock. Joshy was carrying a bit of a tight back and tight hamstrings, so we had to be careful with him. He's so important to us. So throw a team out, and your left back comes up with a winner. It's obviously a nice night. So squad rotation, but also looking ahead as well at your options. Oh, of course, yeah. Lukey we brought in as a midfield player at the start of the season, and has spent probably 90% of the time as a left side of 3 or a left full back. Obviously, we've had the injuries to Saxon and Kane Vincent-Young, which has forced us into using him as a full back more often than what maybe he would have liked and we would have liked. We brought him as a midfield player, and we've had to adapt off the back of it. We've also got Nige, who I thought was outstanding when he played there last week against Derby. He was very, very good again tonight. So wanted to have a look at Lukey in midfield. We also got to be wary of the fact that Potsy's have got a big dead leg at the weekend, and we hope he'll be back for the week for Carlisle, but we'll have to wait and see on him. Joshy obviously had a bit of a tight hamstring while we had to take him off at the weekend. He was absolutely fine, but want to be careful with him. We can't have him breaking down, so he's so important to us. So yeah, we have had to rotate the pack. So maybe that was some moments where we weren't quite as fluent as maybe we'd want to be, but to the boys to play with a character and the way they play tonight, I'm so pleased.
Something which he picked out as well, which I think is quite key, is that obviously the amount of changes that he's had to make, especially with the fixture congestion that we're experiencing at the moment.
I think it's a perfect problem for him to have at this time of the season because, I said there are players out of contract. He's going to want to have a look at people. He's going to want to try a few things out. And he can do that now under the cloak of fixture congestion, which is perfect because he can say, look, we're monitoring minutes. We don't want to get people injured. We're making sure everyone's in their optimum shape. So I can change out the centre-backs this week, or I can do this, I can do that. And it's perfect timing. Because if this was sort of 6 months ago, everyone would be like, he doesn't know his best 11, what's going on. This is exactly the time for us to be looking at these players, these systems, and working out where relationships are, working out what things are working, perhaps what things aren't. And he's really grabbing those opportunities with both hands. The fact that we're getting results as well makes life a lot easier, as it always does.
And great to see some players that we've not seen for a while. Joe Jacobson, for example, is edging towards his 400th appearance.
Look, he came on in injury time and he's got all that experience when you're winning a game by one goal in a situation that's pretty fiery in terms of Port Vale. Like I said, he would have cut their arms off to get the equaliser or even a winner last night. What better person to bring on at that stage of the game? All the know-how in the world, Joe Jacobson. Yes, he's heading towards that 400 appearances for Wycombe Wanderers, but I think him coming on at that stage of the game, that's not like let's just get him on and get the numbers up. This is an experienced pro coming on who can play on that left-hand side. He can step in and play centre-back. He can do that. He can read the game really, really well. He can manage a game probably better than anyone I've seen in the Wycombe shirt in recent years. So really important that he's part of the squad and around the group. And like he has been all season, we may not have seen him on the pitch very much. He may not have even been in the squad huge amounts. He may have spent a bit of time with me in the commentary box. He's around the training ground day in, day out. He's around the players. And that knowledge is being sort of passed on by osmosis, really. It's a really important role that he's played this season, and it shouldn't be understated.
And some great solidity being shown at the back as well. You mentioned in the commentary how Ryan Tafazoli and Chris Farino are doing, and also Franco, of course, in goal.
Big test last night for them both as well, Tafazoli and Big Chris at the back, because it was a sort of a dual kind of monster up front in terms of Ikpeazu and Loft, two very similar style players, very physical, really trying to exert themselves on the opposition. So it was a big test of the physical strength and mental strength of Ryan Tafazoli and Chris Farino, which they passed with flying colours. I thought Big Chris was excellent, and he has been in recent games as well. Tafazoli's got that kind of level-headedness and that calmness you need, but he could mix it too. And I thought, the combination of the left and the right foot as well together was really excellent. I think Nigel at left-back, he's a centre-back by trade, but he's such a good footballer, you could probably play him anywhere across that back four. And he looked comfortable and obviously picked up his goal, popping off on the right wing somehow too. But yeah, I think defensively resolute. I think Franco did fantastic with the save in the first half. There was a lot of ball into the box at times as well, and did well. So look, goalkeeper's been spoken about at length in recent weeks, and the clean sheet record means that it's Franco's position, and you can't argue with that.
Really great to get that clarification from the manager and the story behind Max's emergency loan as well on Ringing the Blues this week.
Look, he's not getting game time, and there's only one goalkeeper per team. So there's going to be someone upset or frustrated about not being able to play. And, I guess you'd want that as well, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want somebody to sit there and go, okay, it's all right. We'll see what happens. You want someone passionate and wanting to play. And I'm sure if Max gets the call back from Wycombe or he has to come back and play for whatever reason, he'll do a fantastic job. But equally, if a team needs an experienced goalkeeper and the rules allow it, which the emergency situation does, then he's going to go and get game time, which can only benefit Wycombe in this situation, because if something was to happen to Franco and we needed Max back, then he's been playing matches. I think Max, by his own admission, would be disappointed with the first goal he let in at Crewe, but he could put that down to lack of game time recently. But if he goes and does well and sharpens himself up and keeps himself sharp and ready, then it could benefit Wycombe between now and the end of the season, although we are running out of games. But we saw it with David Stockdale at Stevenage the other year. He went out on loan for a week, 10 days, played fantastically well, came back almost a foot taller in terms of his confidence and whatever. Something happened at Wycombe and he goes straight into the team and he's ready to roll. That's what you want. It's a win-win situation, and we'll see what happens in the summer.
No, it's a great point. And just finally, it was really interesting in the commentary where you point out that when Wycombe and Port Vale were due to play in January, how similar they were in terms of points and a situation. And now Port Vale obviously struggling down the bottom. And Carlisle clearly a long way from Wycombe on Saturday geographically, but also a long way from safety as well.
Yeah, look, you can look at all the different approaches in football. You can talk about formations, you can talk about tactics. Let's talk about decisions. Port Vale were level on points with Wycombe Wanderers on the day that game was meant to be played in January. They were on a bad run. They lost a couple of decent loanees in the summer. The bad run continued. They changed the manager. They brought in Darren Moore, who won the League One playoff final last season, was a championship manager, has had success elsewhere in his career, former player. There was huge talk in January on pressure on Matt Bloomfield, and the Cougs came out publicly, backed him in the transfer window as well, which has been very successful. There's two stark differences there. We were both at the same point. We've both taken different routes, and look where we are now. If Port Vale had done the same, would it be working out now? We don't know. They changed the manager. They perhaps maybe should have focused more on the transfer window. It's easy to say now with hindsight. They changed the manager in February when it was too late for him to do any recruitment. He couldn't turn it around quickly. I think it was 7-8 games before they picked up a win under Darren Moore. So, yeah, maybe too little too late. The games will run out for him. But, from a Wycombe point of view, you can only look at the decisions made and the strategy, and you can only class it as a success from that position in January when you compare it to someone you were toe-to-toe with at the time. So I think credit should be extended to the Cougs. There was a lot of noise around the club, a lot of noise around the situation, and fans, understandably so, unhappy with results. But, as Rob kept saying, it's a long season. Stick with us, and they've delivered on this occasion.
And presumably Carlisle will pose a similar test as well, with them being battling down the bottom as well as Port Vale.
Look, there's similarities here as well. They've just changed ownership now in this season. They've got an American family who've come from an American sport and into football for the first time. These are all things familiar for Wycombe Wanderers fans. They've got a very popular manager who's got them into that division in the first place. They stuck by him. They've got relegated by quite some distance, let's be honest. But there's no panic there. I think they're going to look at this as a strategy and come back stronger. I think they'll stick with their manager and see where they go from there. But I think they've got a much longer term view on what's going on here. I think obviously had they been a little bit closer to that dotted line, we may have seen some decisions or some certain things changing around the squad or something. But they've sucked it up. They've got on with it. But they're a dangerous opponent now because they have no pressure at all. They can't affect change on this season. They're already in their pre-season for next season too, like we are now, but they're going to be playing in a lower division, which I'm pleased to say isn't happening to Wycombe Wanderers.
Enjoy the game and also the multiple service stations.
Indeed, mate. Well, I'm going on the train, so unless there's some huge news on transport infrastructure, I won't be at the services. So
you'll miss out on that. Thank you very much for your time.
Nice one, Colin. I'll speak soon, mate.
Always a pleasure to have Phil on the show, and you can hear more from him next week. And does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity there, doesn't it, on those service stations that he won't be visiting on Saturday because he's going on the train. Hear more from the manager later in the show, and a bit more on that train journey as well. They'll be setting off tomorrow, as it seems. You can catch the interview with Matt Bloomfield in full on Wanderers TV and on the Wycombe Wanderers website. Look out for Ringing the Blues as well. You can get this week's edition on the podcast as well. It'll be live on Wycombe Sound on Tuesday night as build up to that game as well. A quick reminder, you'll be able to hear the whole match live on Saturday on Wanderers TV and on 106.6 here on Wycombe Sound at the bottom team, Carlisle United, already relegated, playing League 2 football next season. Wycombe Wanderers League 1 status is safe, and we'll continue to follow the club. We've got a couple more episodes of this show between now and the end of the season. Part 2's on the way here at Wycombe Sound.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound. Tuesday evenings from 8. Chatsworth. Chat that's worth a listen with comedians.
Sorry, that's my phone. It's Albert calling me. Albert, what are you doing? What? You're phoning me by accident. Am I? Yes. I'm doing an interview now. Oh, what should I do? We'll turn it off. Oh, hang on a second, Colin.
Most couples listening to this will have one super organised, energetic person like me, and they'll be married to someone who can't pick up a sock. It is the fate of the human race.
On the front row, there was a woman in her late 70s, and I just presumed that she would get very uptight if anything was near the mark, and she absolutely loved it. And I thought, of course, she's seen and heard everything. She's, nearly 80.
Can I speak? No, I'm doing an interview. Can I go to the toilet? You can go to the toilet, yes. That doesn't affect my interview, does it? Well, I don't know.
and Colin.
If you do fancy a laugh on a Tuesday evening, I'll look forward to speaking to you then. Although due to the modern ways of listening, you can catch up anytime via the Listen Again feature on the website, wycombesound.org.uk.
Anyway, I've completely lost my thread, but that's Albert.
Part 2 of this week's Wycombe Wanderers Show coming up. We'll chat to Emani from Wycombe Wanderers Women. She's a comparatively new signing, not been at the club long, and is already scoring goals and is a fantastic winger as well. But first, thanks to Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, a very special guest this week, someone who is celebrating a fantastic birthday today. He's 95 years young, I'm sure he won't mind me saying. Celebrating with his wife Shirley. They've been married for 67 years. They've got 3 daughters, 9 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. I hope he's had a fantastic day today. Dick Tunmer, who isn't even the oldest of Wycombe Wanderers ex-players surviving association members, but as you can imagine, he's very pleased to have reached such an age.
I mean, if I met somebody else from 95, I'd think he was an old man, but you just get there, you wake up each morning, and that's how you keep going on. I've been lucky, I think, in so much as, obviously my memory goes a bit, and I've got lots of aches and pains, but I feel I'm not too bad for my age anyway.
And you're not even the oldest member of the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association.
Well, I was for quite a while, and then suddenly about a couple of years ago, someone else turned up who had a few games for Wycombe, who I think is about a year older than me. So I've been knocked off my perch, but I think I'm the only one who was perhaps a regular Wycombe Wanderers player.
And we'll talk obviously about your playing, but I understand you can even remember the first Wycombe game that you saw.
Oh, the first Wycombe Wanderers game I watched was in April 1939, which was before the war, and I was 9 years old, living in Presswood, caught the bus into Wycombe and went to see Wycombe play Wimbledon. And a number of those players that I watched then became friends or at least acquaintances of mine afterwards.
So what were your memories of some of the players that you watched? And then, as you say, became friends?
Wycombe won the Amateur Cup, I think, in about 1931. And at least 2 of those players were playing the day I watched them in 1939. And who subsequently I got to know anyway.
And how did you actually come to play for the club?
Well, at 18, I had to do national service, which people did in those days. And I went into the army, and I was already playing reasonable football at that stage. But when I came out of the army, I didn't think I'd be good enough for Wycombe, so I went and played for Chesham. Had a good season. We won the Berks and Butts Cup, and I played at Lotes Park a couple of times for Chesham, and that was it. And I happened to be in Aylesbury one day and met an ex-Chesham player called Alan Gaunt, who had also played for Wycombe. And I said to him I wouldn't mind playing for Wycombe. And he said, well, they've got a new manager there called Jimmy McCormack, and I'll put a word in for you. And the next thing I know is I have a letter from Alan Gaunt saying the new manager would like to see you down at Lotes Park one evening for training. And it all went from there.
Can you remember your debut?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting to get in the first team, of course. I went there thinking I'd play in the reserves and might get a chance in the first team. But there was a new manager appointed called Jimmy McCormack, and I think he wanted to bring in 1 or 2 of his own players, and I happened to be one of the 1 or 2 that he wanted to bring in. So, from not expecting to be, would have been quite happy to play in the reserves, suddenly found I was in the first team. Leytonstone, I think we played a Crystal Palace side in a friendly, and probably had 1 or 2 other games, but the first league game I had was Leytonstone away, which I think we drew. Anyhow, Leytonstone were one of the big names in those days, and to go there and get a draw was quite something, so that got off to a good start anyway.
No, absolutely. What would you say are some of the highlights of your time at the club that you remember the best?
Well, we got to the quarter-finals of the Amateur Cup and got drawn away at Barnet with a crowd of 10,000. We had also a Liverpool side called Marine Crosby in the Amateur Cup with a crowd of 12,000 at Oaks Park. But if you're asking me for the games, enjoyable games, I can remember playing Fulham reserves at Oaks Park, beating them 3-2. And on that occasion, I was up against a young lad called Johnny Haynes, who subsequently became the first £100 footballer with Fulham and captained England. And yeah, I was up against him at Oaks Park. And another memorable game was playing for Wycombe. We did a tour of Holland, playing one of the top Dutch sides. I played over there, and I think that was probably one of the most enjoyable games I've ever played in.
And obviously you played with some great characters and names from the club's history in the 50s as well.
I wouldn't say we had any really big stars. The main player when I played was someone called Ken Butler. Within about a year ago, a Welsh rugby player called Eddie Butler, who was a broadcaster, died, who had played for Wales at rugby. His father was captain of the Wycombe team when I played, and extremely good player, a little bit erratic, but on his day was as good as anything that was playing amateur football in those days. The names that I would name out would be lost to most people now, but I mean, there was Johnny Blizzard, Frank Westley, Dennis Atkins, some very good players.
No, absolutely. And what was it like playing under the different managers that you played under?
Well, the one who I could do no wrong with was a chap called Jimmy McCormack, who took me into the side, and because I was one of his players, I did all right, and he always seemed to be pleased with me. Unfortunately, he upset the committee, and they decided to get rid of him, and in came a manager called Sid Can, who again was an extremely good manager, but completely opposite type of character to McCormack. And I never really settled with Sid. He was very quiet, had his own favourites, of which I wasn't one of them. And I struggled with him. But having said that, he was extremely successful for Wycombe in his own right. But eventually I fell out with him, and I went off to play elsewhere. And that was it.
And you had such a great career after your time at the club, of course, with Dulwich Hamlet and also as a player manager at Chesham.
Dulwich at that time were a very well-regarded club, and certainly on an equal with Wycombe, really. Well, we played in the same league, but not as organised as Wycombe. Dulwich were rather run by ex-players who changed their mind most weeks. And it was a shame, really, because it was a wonderful club and had a lovely ground, but never really had the organisation that Wycombe had got by having a full-time professional coach. I found myself one week without a game, met somebody from Chesham and said, "Oh, I haven't got a game this week." And he said, "Oh, come and play with us." So they put me into the Chesham team just for that 1 week. It then started, "Oh, come and play for us, come and play for us." And eventually it was arranged that I would go and play for them as player manager, which was a mistake, really, because it was just too hard work. I didn't seem to get an awful lot of cooperation. Everything you did wasn't necessarily to everybody's liking, and in the end it just got too much for me and I gave it up.
And has it been great for you to be a fan of Wycombe as well and just following their progress over the years?
Oh, yes. I had a season ticket. A good friend of another ex-player called Jackie Tomlin, we had seats together as season ticket holders for a long period. And we had all the Martin O'Neill era. We sat together, I don't know how many seasons, but quite a number of seasons we were there cheering on Wycombe and saw all the wonderful Martin O'Neill years.
And I imagine as well it's been really interesting for you to see how the game has changed since when you played it.
Oh, well, yes. The pitches are much better now. We played in quite heavy boots in those days. The balls are much lighter now. Again, they're quite heavy leather balls. No, the whole game is altered completely. Not everything nowadays is better than it used to be, but there's an awful lot of it which is.
Would you quite like to be playing now?
I don't know whether I'd be good enough. The game has changed. I don't know whether my game really was I could run. And as a midfielder, I was always in the game, not necessarily doing anything particularly well, but always in it. I think it's changed so much now. I'm not quite sure where I'd fit into it.
Sure, and I know you were very good all-round sportsman as well, playing cricket to a good level as well.
Oh, I did play cricket, but I could never start at the beginning of the cricket season because the football overlapped, and I could never play cricket at the end of the season because the football season was just starting. So I did play cricket, but I wouldn't pretend I was anything very special at all.
And do you think being so active has really helped in your long life?
Well, no, I don't think it has necessarily. In fact, it hasn't helped my limbs at all. My knees and my hips are completely shot. So that's my sporting life hasn't helped that at all. I've never smoked. I've never really bothered about drinking. I've led a fairly dull, modest life, I think, and that may have helped me. I don't know.
Well, we must congratulate you on reaching such a great age. Hope you have a very happy birthday. Obviously, your wife as well. You've been married a long time, and you've got a great family. So, I hope you really enjoy your celebrations.
Thank you very much indeed.
A real privilege to speak to Dick Tunmer from his home in Bourne End, celebrating his 95th birthday today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Fantastic to share your memories, and brilliant to get his thoughts as well. Not too many chats with Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association left of the remainder of the season. In fact, I've got one next week, and then the following week I think is our final show of the season. And normally at the end of the campaign we have a compilation, which is a brilliant listen. Some of the highlights of the former Sky and Navy quarter player wearers from the past. So many eras to cover. We've been fortunate enough to speak to over this last season. That's on the way in the coming weeks. On next week's show, we'll chat to Mark Gateskill, who's the Chief Executive of the Wycombe Wanderers Foundation. You might have heard the news that we mentioned recently that Wycombe Wanderers Women have now been come under their umbrella for next season. Exciting time for them. Last night, Chairboys Chat, something which is on every Wednesday night, featured a very special guest, senior first-team player Jason McCarthy, bringing men together to talk about the highs and lows of the weekend's football, as well as anything else that's on their minds. It's a brilliant initiative. You can get in touch with Sam at the foundation. Sam's email address is sam.white@wwfc.com to receive a link to take part in future Chairboys chats. They really are really popular and often feature some of the first team getting involved with that as well. Last night, as I say, Jason McCarthy was a very special guest using his experience to really help many people. And I must say, I hope you found that useful if you were involved in that. As I say, well worth tuning in to next week as well, Wednesdays at 7. Check out the Wycombe Wanderers Foundation's website and pages on the Wycombe Wanderers website as well for full details. And as mentioned, Mark Gateskill from the Foundation, he's the Chief Executive. We'll be catching up with him. Lots of other news from the Foundation to bring you as well, here on Wycombe Sound.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound. The Wycombe Wanderers Show, Thursdays from 7.
106.6 FM. Wycombe Sound.
Final part of this week's Wycombe Wanderers Show still to come. We'll hear from manager Matt Bloomfield looking ahead to the long trip to Carlisle on Saturday. You'll hear the match live here, of course, on Wycombe Sound on 106.6 and on Wanderers TV as well. But first, we shift our attention to Wycombe Wanderers Women. Only 2 league games left of their season. They've got some post-season friendlies to come. The Sponsors Cup as well next month, which I'm very much looking forward to going to after being invited, and an awards evening as well next month too. But on Sunday, an unfortunate 4-2 defeat. Someone who played in that game is Emani Kassem, who joined the club not that long ago, and I've been very pleased to catch up with her and find out how her football journey started.
I've been playing football since I was, say, around 6, 7, but I never really saw it as a career. It was a hobby for me. I used to always play with the boys around my area and for my school team. And then, it was only when I would say 15 or 16, I started seeing that women were actually playing for teams. So I signed up for a team. I ended up getting in. And then, it all started there, to be honest.
And how did it come about finding your position? Did you sort of drift quite naturally out wide, or did you? Because it's quite an exciting position, isn't it, to be able to take players on, obviously, and use your pace?
To be honest, I started off as a goalkeeper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think I was in year 4, and because I was really quick, I used my reflexes in goal. And then I started playing outfield, and then I started noticing that I could retain the ball, and I was really quick when I had it. So I went from goalkeeper to playing on the wing. And I just stuck to that ever since I was, I think, around 15.
And it must have been great for you to be playing for, at a more senior level as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's improved my game a lot, especially because I used to play at academy / under 23 level. And what I noticed is playing for a senior team, there's more physicality involved, and the game's just different, to be honest. So it's a lot to pick up on and a lot to learn.
It must be great for you at this time as well, because women's football is having such a sort of rise in popularity as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel as though since the women have been doing well in the Euros, women's football's grown in England especially, and a lot of girls have been participating in the sport. So to be in this position where I can influence girls who are much younger than me, I feel like it's very cool, because when I was 8 or 9, I didn't really have anyone to look up to, but now they have so many women to look up to, so it's a really good role to play, to be honest, especially in this time.
And especially in your position as well, because you can really sort of excite fans, and like you say, especially younger girls and women can really sort of look at what you're doing and be impressed and perhaps like to try and do something similar themselves. Yeah,
no, I agree, because growing up, especially when I was watching men's football, what really got me into football was watching a lot of wingers, for example, Neymar, or some 10s, some cams, for example, Messi and Ronaldo, all these players. It really motivated me to play in this position and learn skills. So obviously for myself, being a bit skillful, I hope it's really just interesting for younger girls to see, to be honest.
And do those skills, do you find that they come quite naturally to you, or is it obviously something you have to work on quite a bit and practice, but it must be great to be able to, when sort of certain things come off for you?
It came really naturally. I started playing football before I started training, so a lot of the skills I learned to do, I just picked up on myself. So when I actually did start training, if a coach would tell me to do a skill, I wouldn't be able to do it, but if he asked me to do a 1v1, I'd be able to just create something in the moment. So for me, I feel like it's all in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to have that improvisation as well, because I guess you'll probably find yourself in different situations as well on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I find it when I think of a skill and I try to do it, it won't really work as well as me just having the ball and having that 1v1 and just doing it and getting past the player, to be honest. It comes really natural when I don't think about it. When I think about it, I don't feel like it goes as well.
And are there any particular female players, say in the WSL or England, who particularly inspire you as well? And I guess, you probably look out for certain players who play in your position too.
One of my favourite players in the WSL at the moment, I'd say, is Chloe Kelly. I feel like she's a really entertaining player. The way her style of play is just, it's entertaining, and she's good.
And how did your move to Wycombe come about?
I've known Carl for a while because I played against Wycombe for I was with a local team. It was actually my sister's team, and they were short on players. I think it was a friendly, so they just asked me to come down. And I remember scoring that game, and it was actually it was a funny goal, to be honest, with a funny celebration. And then ever since, I've been in contact with Carl. And then I was at Ashford last season, and he noticed that this year I wasn't playing any games. And then when he told me about the promotion Wycombe were trying to get for next season, it really caught my attention, and I was really interested in being a part of the move, to be honest. So, yeah, and it's not too far, so, and the girls are lovely.
It's ideal, isn't it? Because it must sound like such a great project to be involved with, and, what Carl and the team are building, and the kind of the focus and the drive of the other players too.
Yeah, definitely. The coaches are really nice, and they're really motivating, and obviously they try their hardest to make sure we're in our best shape, and I really appreciate that from them. And yeah, I like the work rate from the girls. Like, we always go in with the mentality to win. In training, the intensity is always high. So yeah, I feel like it's somewhere where I can develop myself, and obviously I hope I can bring my skills to help, accomplish that goal next year.
And do you feel you've settled in really easily as well?
Yeah, definitely. I was a bit nervous coming in because obviously it was a new team, but the girls are really welcoming. So yeah, it was a nice introduction.
And what have been your initial impressions of the games that you have played?
So far, I think I like the way the girls gel together, and obviously we know our weaknesses and our strengths. And since I'm new to the team, I've gained a quick understanding on how the style of play is at Wycombe. I feel like it's going really well, especially in the games.
I imagine that really suits your game as well.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like one of my strengths is I'm really quick, so playing with three at the back and playing as a fullback, I feel like I can use my strengths to get back and then attack. So it's really fun for me. It's tiring, but it's really fun.
And you had a great chance early on Sunday, of course, and that must have been great just to sort of, take on the defenders and come so close to scoring as well.
Yeah, it was quite frustrating, actually, but, I hope I can recreate that and actually score this time, because it was a very good run. And it is, I always do the hard parts, but I never finish my dinner. So that's obviously something I have to get done.
Absolutely, must finish your dinner. But I guess as well, it must be equally disappointing because it was like the last home game of the season, and obviously, supporters got to see a lot of goals, and obviously the great work rate as well. But disappointing to come away with nothing really. Yeah,
no, I agree. I feel like we all worked as hard as we could. Like, all the girls put in 110%, and we tried to get the result. Like, we weren't far off. At some point, they were 2 goals ahead, and then we would catch up, and then there'd only be 1 goal ahead, and then unfortunately they would score another goal. And I think it was just harder towards the end of the game. I feel like when I scored after the halftime, everyone was more confident, and I thought we were back in the game. But after we conceded, 5 minutes later, I think everyone's head just dropped. But yeah, we go again. It was unfortunate because it was the last home game, but there's more games to come, so I'm sure we'll work on what we need to work on and come back stronger.
And it's really nice as well, as you say. It's great that you settled in so well to the team, and you can look forward to next season, as you say, hopefully going for the promotion. And you'll have more of an idea of the competition in terms of the other teams that you'll be coming up against as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, because I feel like coming into the team at this time, I've gotten a better understanding of the league and the team. So, and obviously our team. So coming into next year, when we go for obviously our goal, I feel like I'll understand everything much more, so it'll be easier, and hopefully it will just flow. It
must be really exciting for you as well, going into the new season and what you can achieve with the club. As you say, hopefully scoring and assisting plenty.
Yeah, I hope so.
I meant to ask you as well about sort of combining, football with your kind of outside football stuff. Is that quite nice with the balance for sort of training as well, and how you sort of combine that with what you do outside of football too?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my life is just football, to be honest. So outside of Wycombe, obviously I do a bit of content creating, especially for like younger girls to see, so they can be influenced by like us who are obviously trying to get their pros and in the football world. So I feel like just doing that all the time keeps me sharp. So when I do come into training and games, I've really spent half my week on the pitch. So yeah, I'm sharp, I guess.
Great to chat to Emani here on the show, who had a great performance on Sunday. Didn't get the result the team were after, but a 4-2 defeat against Winchester. Great to see Amy Leach among the goals as well, who had on the show a couple of times. Be chatting to Carl, the manager, before the end of the season as well, wishing the Chairgirls all the best for their remaining 2 league games of the season, both away, of course, rearranged fixtures. And now, though, speaking of away games, we had a rearranged fixture for the men on Tuesday night against Port Vale. That because they had a frozen pitch in January. 2 more away games to come, including Saturday up at Carlisle. And as Phil mentioned a little earlier on, the mode of transport being taken. Here's Matt Bloomfield.
We're going up on the train on Friday, so we were looking forward to that. But yeah, we're looking at each other a lot at the moment, and coaches and team meeting rooms and meetings. So we have to be really careful with the group how much we can train. It's a lot in the classroom and the meeting room and talking through a lot of situations, because obviously we need to keep the energy for the pitch. But if we can play with that character and energy again on Saturday, then we hope to go to Carlisle and be as competitive as we can be.
Carlisle are already relegated, so they're obviously looking next season in League Two and already planning for that. How do you plan for a game against a side like that? It must be very unpredictable.
Yeah, I guess so, but I would probably suggest that we've been very unpredictable ourselves in the last 4 games, the amount of changes we've had to make each game to play the amount of games we have in that time. So I don't know what our team will be on Saturday right at this point. We have to count the knocks and count the heads, see who's going to have the energy to go again, and pick a team that we believe can play with the manner that we want to play with. So whilst Carlisle may be unpredictable, we will be ourselves, I would suggest, and it's going to be like that until the end of the season with the games we've got to play.
And you mentioned the train ride up there. Wycombe Wanderers are picking up momentum as a train now in these final stages of the season. That must please you as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because, as a manager, losing is horrible. The pain is horrible. So to win some games and to build the optimism and momentum that we want to do into the summer, like I said, mate, I feel like the January window was huge for us. Huge for us. I feel like we were able to put some real bases down for what our team wants to look like moving forward. Obviously we've got some boys on loan that we'll look at. We've got some boys that are permanent that we're happy and really pleased to have amongst us with the group that we've already got. So yeah, I think it's a real exciting time for us to really put the pieces in place, to plan for the summer, to hopefully gain that momentum and carry that through the summer into next season.
I'm not sure what kit we're wearing on Saturday, but it seems like a very, very long time ago where we launched the green kit with Rhino, because it was 30 years since Wycombe Wanderers played at Carlisle for their first ever Football League game. We're back up there on Saturday. It does seem like a very long time ago.
It does. It's been, in the manner of time and the manner of events, it's been a long season. There's a lot that's happened. There's been a lot of transition and change, and with change comes tough moments. And there's been a lot of research in terms of change, and the middle ground is always clunky and it's always messy and it always looks like it's going to be hard work. But eventually, if you can keep clear minds and steady minds and muddle your way through that with what you want to do, you can come through the other side. We're far from, I'm certainly not going to get, we've got a lot of work to do, mate. I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves. There's a lot more work to do to get to where we want to be, but we've got some real solid foundations and we're excited to build on that.
Well, enjoy the train ride on Friday.
Top man, I'll see you on it, won't I?
Yeah. Great to hear from the manager on the show as always, and we wish the team all the best for Saturday when they take on Carlisle United away. You'll hear the whole match live here on Wycombe Sound on 106.6. Luke will keep you up to date over online as well. You'll get half and full-time updates from Phil as well at the ground. Another game, of course, on Tuesday evening. Don't forget that will be again live on the radio and on Wanderers TV. Ringing the Blues precedes that. You'll get all the post-match reaction from Saturday, and just a reminder, of course, that we'll be back at the same time next week for our penultimate show of the season, I think. Yeah, no, it will be, won't it? Including a chat with Mark Gateskill, more from Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association. We'll catch up with Phil, of course, hear more from the manager as well, and lots more to bring you too. Including, of course, the week after, our predictions as to where we thought the team would end up at the end of the season. see how that matches up. You can find full details on the website. Don't forget, as I say, pre-match drills available on Wanderers TV. And have a fantastic week. Fingers crossed for the continued strong end to the season for the final 2 games for Wycombe Wanderers. Have a good rest of your week and join us next week. Don't forget the podcast available for you to catch up with as well.